Welcome to BlackUSA.news morning show. I'm your host, William Honolulu Jr. Join us as we explore the news and opinions that impact our community. We break down how the major stories have a very personal, local, and racial impact. No topic is off limits, but even if the conversation gets rough, we're always going to keep it real. Greetings and salutations to all my friends out there in internet land. I am William Honolulu Jr., and I have the pleasure of being the host of the Black USA News Morning Show. Thank you so much for being here today. I am so happy and grateful to be able to be here with you guys. We're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to take a trip down memory lane and look at some of the shows that we've done before. We're going to introduce some of you all to some brand new people and get some of you all reacquainted. So hang on. Here we go.
I wanted us to discuss the Kama Sutra because you know that my whole business is sexual health education. And my thing is, how did we get here? In order to figure out how we got here, you have to look at what we did in the past, right? And I don't mean 20th century past. I mean like in the past. What happened? How did as humans, how did we define sex? And if you look at all these cultures, they'll define sex and sexual relations in a certain way. And I wanted to see where that came from. The Kama Sutra is a fantastic document. And unfortunately, in the West, we're only familiar with their pictures. Look at what the pictures show. But no one ever reads the 10 chapters that comprise it. And it is a fantastic document. Let me just give you a little bit of how it came to be. It is, and this is according to Indian legend, because this is based on Indian culture, the Indian god Shiva, in love with the female projection of himself. Okay, enjoyed sex so much. It's like, this is fantastic, being a girl. That he wanted to pass on the discoveries he made while being in his female form. And it covers everything having to do with the being male and female and having relations. It is meant to be enjoyed. It is meant not just procreation. It's meant to be enjoyed.
So a God said that we're supposed to do it like this? I like it. Go ahead. Keep going. I like it.
Sex is supposed to be a natural impulse, and it is to be enjoyed. And so the entirety of the Kama Sutra is how best to enjoy the sexual impulse. I was like, yeah. Why was I not born Indian? This is amazing. It is not sinful. It is meant to be enjoyed. And the whole purpose of the book is the gathering of all of these Indian philosophers and poets telling you how best to navigate what is naturally in you. Hello. And I'm sitting here and I was like, this is how Western culture has got it jacked up. We have ruined it. We put it in a box it was never supposed to be in. And now you've got people walking around with traumas and predilections and yeah. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
I like it. Dr. B, would you... I know that you do a lot of work with entrepreneurs, and we talked in some of the previous episodes, and you all need to go back and catch those if you haven't. But we talked about how, like, your journey through seeing from the banking and the financial services perspective, the gaps that many entrepreneurs, particularly entrepreneurs of color, had when they were coming to the table. Looking at application for credit from a white vendor, white client versus a black client, the reality is that there sometimes were things that were missing. Not that they didn't exist, it's just that they didn't have the information that'll bring those to the table. So talk a little bit about what your experience, how, I want to refresh people for those who don't really remember that much. And for those who are new, refresh them about what you saw, like, and how that shaped your journey and even creating Kingdom Vision Consultants.
Absolutely. So let's start back from when I first began in the banking industry. I started as a part time teller while I was a student at Howard University. So behind that teller line, I got to see the real deal behind everyone's finances when you're coming to make deposits, make withdrawals. Yes, on the consumer side, but also those business owners. And what I noticed was that a lot of time businesses on paper or on social media appear to be doing amazing, have all the followers, the likes, etc. But when you look at their bank accounts, it didn't necessarily reflect that. When you
Mm-hmm.
even look at their personal financial relationships,
Mm-hmm.
it didn't necessarily reflect that. So that became intriguing to me. And a part of banking that I absolutely love was providing financial education. So
Mm-hmm.
there is a program called At Work at most banking institutions.
Mm-hmm.
Wells had it, BB&T had it at work, where they actually go out and educate entrepreneurs and their employees on just financial wellness. So I started to do that because I noticed that most clients who look like me, like you said, just didn't have access to the information. It's not that they didn't want to do better. It's not that they didn't have the capacity to. They just didn't have the information, the know how.
Mm-hmm.
That is the most important piece. So, along my journey within the banking industry, from a teller to a personal banker, and then advancing to becoming a business banker, and then later on a manager, I got to see even more, right? I got to have
Mm-hmm.
more intentional conversations. And I started to actually submit those applications where I'm also having conversations with underwriters now, right,
Mm-hmm.
about
Mm-hmm.
how they are making decisions for our loans. And what I saw was that, of course, we as a people are already starting backwards, right? We're starting from behind the starting point. And that's not at any fault of our own. But
Mm-hmm.
the banks sometimes do not always provide that empathy that we need for them
Mm-hmm.
to truly understand us. I remember particularly, I was working with a client on a loan that had originally been declined, and we were trying to get that decision overturned.
Mm-hmm.
And I was having a conversation with the underwriter, and the specific issue was, I believe, a foreclosure on a property back in like 2008, of course, when everything had crashed.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah.
And there was a short sale, and the thing is that their lender at the time had encouraged them to do the short sale. Like, they had to miss payments in order to qualify for certain things. And when I was having this conversation with the underwriter, he said, "That seems a little self-inflicted, doesn't it?" And it was just his yes, his response, his reaction, it was just unwarranted to me, but it also shows a lack of empathy, a lack of understanding. Of course, the underwriter was white and my client was Black.
Mm-hmm.
And then I, as a Black woman advocating on behalf of this Black business owner, of course, we saw our challenges, but in the industry, I learned that you cannot back down, right? But that's also the importance of having strategic banking relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I tell my clients all the time, you have to not just have an institution that you're making deposits and withdrawals, but you actually have to have a person on the inside who can advocate for you, who can get to you, know your business, understand your challenges, understand your triumphs as well, right? To get to know the full story so that they can become a sponsor for you. And
Mm-hmm.
because the client had done that with me, we built that relationship. I got to know her. I got to know the husband, the family dynamic. I got to understand the financial story, what they had also gone through to cause some of those things on their credit report. So much so where I was willing to put my neck on the line for this client. Long story short, on the other end, we were able to get multiple decisions overturned, right? While I was
Mm-hmm.
at the banking institution. And even once I transitioned, the client had another issue with the bank, another declined product, and I was able to make a phone call to my contacts for them to rework some things in the application, and boom, we had an approval. But that came from understanding how the underwriters work. You have to understand the game so that you can play the game very intentionally, very strategically.
Mm-hmm.
But we are automatically starting from behind, and if we don't catch up just by having the right people in our corner, that financial dream team, a lot of times we will never really know how to move forward.
One of the things we've talked about on the show several times is throughout the United States, there are a lot of states that are passing what's been known or come to be called the Crown Act. And it is legislation, you all know, it's late, but I'll make sure, for those who out there who may not understand, it's legislation that has been passed in all of these states and at local levels as well that provides for Black people's hair. It's crazy that we needed a law to say that, you know, how it just naturally grows, that's okay. And there's a, you know, understanding the difference or elevating the conversation around the difference between style and texture and all of these types of things, and how important they are. When you have kids who are in sports who, before they are able to participate, there is some coach or some referee that says, hey, you got to cut your locks. And one of the ones that I saw that broke my heart, it was a young man. He was a wrestler. This was like state type championships, high state level stakes. He had made it through the tournament. And before they got to the match that he was going to win, they were like, no, his hair is too wild. You have to cut it. And on the sidelines, because again, playing sports, you got to get yourself worked up anyway. Yeah, I used to wrestle in high school, so I remember like, okay, all right, yeah. And to be on the sideline and to have some white, and again, race does play into this, especially with the imagery of it, have some white woman helping you, because she was helping by cutting your locks down to a point where they were acceptable to wrestle.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
So that's, again, even, you know, we're going to absolutely talk about the natural hair care, but really making sure, I want people to really understand why we are celebrating natural hair care, because these are the types of things that, you know, because our hair was like that. And honestly, I'm in this fight and I don't even got hair. Okay. Male pattern baldness is a real thing in life, but I understand the value of this. And so that's what I'm saying. Like this is so important across the board just because of stories like that. And like I said, every time I think of that young man, it breaks my heart. You know, yeah. So sorry, I did actually want to interrupt you, but I wanted to make sure that we really set the context of how important this is.
Yeah, very important. I think that's great that you gave that story, because I can only imagine, you know, having, you know, someone else cutting off something that I've been growing. This was my decision. You know, I've been through so much with this. So that's a tough story to even hear, but I'm glad you put that out there so it can be heard even more, you know.
Yeah.
And that story touches me a little bit on a deeper level, because my son has locks and my son is a wrestler. So you don't want to see this mama bear come up on that mat and try to cut my baby's hair. You know what I mean? And
again, I can't imagine.
I can't either. Both of us going to be surprised. So I think this is unacceptable, and that is sadly the reality, but it shouldn't have to be.
Like I said, I know dope people. And for all of you all who are out there in San Diego or can get to San Diego, make sure that you all go to the event. All of the information is right here. Now, make sure that you go. And if you did take a screenshot or whatever, make sure that you go and make sure that you get your life and learn how to build your tribe. It's kind of like we talked about trailers. The stuff that most people will put on Facebook is the trailer of their life. The most things that other business owners share, unless you have a very a personal, kind of quasi-personal, professional, or intimate relationship with them, they're not telling you about the back office. Like, how many of your customers or how many of your business associates do you tell about the times that things are rough, when you don't know how you're gonna buy your inventory or pay rent and stuff like that? Is that the stuff you share? But when you get that big contract, that's all over social media. Comparison is the thief of joy. You don't know what they did. Like, you know, one of the things I hear often is people talk about, like, especially in Black communities, like, oh, marriage doesn't last like it used to. And our communities, my grandparents were married for 50 years. Actually, and I'm like, wow. But that's not necessarily a high watermark that you necessarily want to meet. Because I know some people who were married back in the day, and the reason that the women stayed was because they couldn't own property on their own. Nobody was going to hire them if they didn't have a husband. So was it really, if you look at the highlights of their lives, is the longevity of the marriage. But were they happy all that time? And so looking at how other people are managing their business, you don't know what's happening in the background. When you are in that space, when you are thinking that everybody else has it easy and you're struggling, that makes your struggle even harder.
Okay.
And by the way, fuck them. So Dr. Ye, tell us a little bit about your perspectives or your experiences dealing with people in the commercial sex work trade.
Well, first of all, it really is the oldest profession in the business, in the world. In the world, the oldest. And y'all know I always try to bring a biblical perspective. It's even in the Old Testament, in the first book, Genesis, chapter 38. But we can get into that later as we begin to delve in. But I have treated patients, especially when I was a student, because we had to get our own patients for clinic. While it pissed us off while we were students, I kind of grew to understand it later on, because it gave us the opportunity for people like me to break out of their shells, to learn to approach people, to practice your 30-second spiel and all of that. And because I'm a popular introvert, but an introvert, I was like, okay, where can I go where I can get the biggest bang for my buck? Boom, boom. So I went down. I went down to this place in Baltimore called The Block on Baltimore Street, because I'm like, where can I go where I can find people that's literally just throwing money away, that have disposable income, right? So I'm going down there Friday nights, Saturday nights, 10, 11, 12 o'clock, when things really start popping.
Yep.
And I'm standing outside the strip clubs, passing out business cards, inviting people to come in and be treated. Strolled into one store, Hustler, I think it was, because their club was in the back. But I went into the store, and there was some ladies in there, and they were purchasing some toys. And I gave them a card, gave them my 30-second spiel. And this one sister looked at me, and she was like, no, you're not trying to encourage me to get acupuncture while I'm in here trying to buy a vibrator. And it shocked me. I couldn't think of nothing else to say. So I just said, you know what? I might need to buy one too. But needless to say, I obtained quite a few patients from doing that. Because in the healthcare industry, and I had to tell people in the university this, healthcare is for everyone, not just the upper echelon of society. Everyone has a right to care. And so one of the things that they used to enjoy asking people to do, which I never would do that, they would ask people, well, what do you do for a living? Or how did you meet Pam or Dr. Ye? Or how did you meet? Where did you find this patient? None of your business. It's none of your business. They would say, oh, it tells you a lot of, no, it don't tell you nothing. It don't tell you nothing.
It gives you an opportunity to stereotype
it can discourage people from care, because who wants to come in and say, oh, I met Ye Wong when she was down at the strip club passing out business cards, and I was getting ready to go in and work the pole. Or I met her on the corner, I was selling drugs. Because those are the people that I would go to, because I felt those were the people who needed healing just as badly as those who have their $1,000 leather briefcases and who are walking into their law offices. And we tend to forget about them. We tend to forget about them because of how they make their money.
Right, which is none of your business.
County, Prince George County, Maryland.
Yeah. And I was just like, you know what I'm saying, and I was talking to a brother. We was talking yesterday, and I was like, man, like, I understand the feeling of, you know what I'm saying, like feeling, you know what I'm saying, like angry and mad and all of that kind of stuff, because you get those emotions and stuff. I said, but man, I wish he had somebody to talk to. I wish I could have talked to him, like, brother, you cannot do this like this. You're not making any points. You know what I'm saying? And all you did was, you know what I'm saying, you left these children by themselves. I don't know, you know what I mean? So far as insurance policies concerned, I don't even know if they can get insurance from you because you killed yourself. You know what I'm saying? Now they gotta go stay. Now you gotta go stay. They have to go stay with a grandmother or somebody. Who they gonna stay with now? You know what I'm saying? And then you done mess their life up for the next 20 years. They devastated.
Watch this. They're going to probably end up staying with somebody who you murdered their relative.
Right.
Like so like all for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
You know, grandma looks at you as like, oh, my baby whose father murdered my daughter. Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right. Exactly. So it's like, man, I was like, man, I wish I could have talked to this brother. You know what I'm saying? Because I know he flipped and he had different things, but you got to fight that out, man. You got to fight hard, and you got to fight in the courts. You got to do, you know what I mean? Whatever you need to do, but you can't get there to that point, you know?
But that's what happens. And I know this, the cool part about this being my show is that I could change topics in the middle, and I've decided that I like this conversation more.
Right.
But that's one of the big things about it is like, when you get these stories in your head, the mental health parts of it, your social support network. And honestly, don't get it twisted. We talk about him having somebody to talk to. We don't know that he didn't. Because I had a friend of mine, she and her child's father was in a situation similar to yours, where, you know, he had gotten himself in, well, his thing gotten together. He got himself together well. And they were going down to take him off child support.
Right.
And so as they were down there, they finished up and they were getting ready to go grab something to eat. And he bumped into a friend of his. He's like, oh, what's up, dude? Da, da, da. He's like, oh, this is my baby mama. He was like, oh, hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh, we just coming back from child support. Everything in this dude's face was, that bitch. And like, she's standing right there. And it was one of those things. It was just visceral.
Right.
It was because, and those kind of things. So, you know, who knows what he would have said about her if she wasn't there.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of times what we don't realize is that a lot of our people are talking to us through their toxicity. Like they're in the thick of it and they really do believe they're helping. They really do. Go. You need to stand up for yourself, because I wish I had done that if I had just, and now they got you caught up in the stories in their head.
Right, exactly. Yep. You right about that. I'm sorry I swerved the topic away. Times is kind of some of the stigma associated that we even put on our own selves about our financial situations.
Yep.
Sometimes I've had, it's so funny, I've had this happen many times where when I used to work at the bank or when I'm helping people prepare for their loan package, it's like, all right, come on, let's pull your credit. Oh man. And we pull, it's like, oh, this isn't bad. Oh, word? And so again, I don't believe in people going out and just using credit all willy-nilly. Honestly, there are most times, especially in the Black community, we invest in our feelings. And so we don't know how, and we get the returns, because I've been on a couple of trips where I'm like, hell yeah. But guess what? That financial return isn't there, and we don't get taught to think about, okay, how much am I spending to feel good? Which, not knocking it, because you look at my bank account, you can tell I feel real good most times. So, but I'm not knocking it, but I'm saying, but I make those choices. I know, because I see that it is all me. I don't become a different person when I put on a tie and log on to my official business email. I am still William. All of my failings and all of my strengths, they come with me. And like Lindsay said earlier, if you are not comfortable with the truth about yourself, then what are you actually doing?
Yep.
And one of the things that the CDFIs and people like Lindsay and myself is that we have not just seen it, we've been through it to the extent that you're not surprising us.
That's right.
I've had a few clients that's like, look, I don't really know, because I'm a train wreck. I don't know if you can help me. I was like, I have run trains off the rails, pick them back up with a screwdriver, put them back together and put it on, and have done the work. And so I understand, especially for those of us who understand how the systems take race into consideration without trying to take race into consideration.
Yeah.
And one of the challenges is, as we're having these conversations, if we don't shift to the systemic systemic portions of the conversation, we will not be able to challenge how they've taken racism and white supremacy and institutionalized it into the system, so that we don't have to say race anymore. We say credit score. We don't have to say race anymore. We say zip code. Those things have become the synonyms for them. But if we keep focusing with, and racism doesn't really matter as it did before, because racism, that anchor was this hate. It has morphed into it, not morphed. It has been revealed for what it always was, because you can't keep the hate up too long. It is white supremacy. It is making sure that cis het white men, well, not even het, cis het presenting. How about that?
That's right.
Cis het presenting white men stay in control of everything.
That's right.
And we need to address it. And the CDFIs, and working with people who understand the needs in the community, and not just trying to come in and have a commercial relationship with the community to profit off of the community, but help build the community. And making sure that we remember, as we say here often, all skin folk and kinfolk.
That's real. That is real. That is real.
A couple things I just needed to say, get off my chest real quick, because we can't. Because I really do appreciate the opportunity to have very meaningful conversations. And big up to Donnie Glover for having this platform. I know, he gets some he gets some emails and some comments every once in a while, but he's still with it. And you could send Donnie the emails if you want to. Donnie does not just enjoy the smoke. I don't know if he could breathe without it. So you can go ahead and fuck with him if you want to. But it is important that we have these very meaningful and deliberate conversations, and really call out people who are supporting the disinvested community. And I specifically mean Black communities, but all of the disinvested communities, because what we recognize, the reason that rural whites and poor whites are not doing as well is because they've been able to look at Black people as, at least as, we're not them, as opposed to recognizing, you are, you just look different. You still broke. They just give you more credit. Ha ha.
Yep.
And so I think it's really important for us to call these things out. And again, I appreciate the work that you do to make sure we raise the fundamental understanding of what money is and how it all works in our community. Like that's some good stuff.
Cover the concept of gaslighting, and then we're going to talk about how governments work. So the concept, people hear the word gaslighting come up a lot in common conversation, but what I realize is that it's kind of like the word crazy. It is that catch-all for this type of deceptive behavior. Crazy is the kind of the catch-all for behavior that seems mentally off or abnormal. And so this gaslighting talks about the different types of lie, or people use it to describe the different types of lies and things like that. That is not necessary. That is gaslighting, but for this context, we need to make sure we understand how we got to how the word evolved and what it actually means. And so, there was a 1938 play called Gaslight, and in this play, the husband is bad dude, totally bad dude, and what he does is he's trying to steal from his wife by making her think that she's crazy. And so one of the ways he does this is that he goes upstairs and he is searching for. So a lady was who lived upstairs. She was a rich lady and died, and nobody found her jewels. So he would go up there like every once in a while when she would go to sleep, and he would be searching the house, searching the upstairs apartment, looking for these jewels. And so they had the gas lights back in the day. So it's kind of like how your gas stove works, except technology was real low budget back then. And so if somebody else was using gas on the upper floor, it was not as much gas for you. So the lights in your house would go down because, it was all like gas. And so if somebody else was using gas upstairs to see, so your lights would go down. And so she would be in the apartment and she started hearing things moving upstairs, and then the lights would go down, and then he wouldn't be gone. It would happen every time he would go. And she was like, "What's going on?" He was like, "You're crazy." And she's like, "No, I hear something." "No, you don't." And so this wasn't the first time he was doing it, but he had already sowed the seeds of getting her to doubt herself, because that's the goal. To drive you crazy, and crazy, not necessarily to put you in a therapist chair or you need to be committed. That's what his goal was. But nowadays, gaslighting isn't just done to make you think you're crazy on large things. It is done to incrementally undermine your trust in self. It is incrementally, it is designed to incrementally get you to rely on the opinions and knowledge of others and to doubt what you know. A lot of times it's done through fear. And people who are targeted are ones who already have anxiety. And so if you can take somebody who already has anxiety or who already has depression or prone to these types of things, and you create a more intense construct around them, they will either break, their minds will break, or they will start to normalize the behavior. Oh, okay, this makes sense. Okay. And that is the point. Debbie, you ain't seen nothing yet. You ain't seen nothing yet, because that is the point. That is the point about gaslighting. It is to get you to normalize behavior so that you are okay, just kind of going along to get along because you are doubting yourself. And so it's important for you to remember gaslighting in that context as we talk more about what happened with January 6th. Rich white men. Donald Trump and all his cronies, rich white men. What is leading us to believe that there's any justice? But remember gaslighting. One of the things in the movie and the play was that everything changed when the wife met this detective. I think his name was Detective Ruff or something. She met the detective, and the detective was like, "No, you're not crazy. This is what's happening. This is what I think is happening." And they started working together to help her. Well, actually ended up getting her husband locked up. But she needed to have someone who was able to have an objective set of facts so that she can say, okay, I'm not crazy. Okay, this did happen. That becomes incredibly important because we get taught through stories.
Greetings and salutations, all my friends out there in internet land. I am William Honolulu Jr., and I have the privilege of being the host of the Black USA News Morning Show. The Black USA News Morning Show is currently recruiting guests for an upcoming series on single parents and co-parenting. We find that there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of isolation in the narrative about single parents. And we want to make sure that we keep this platform available to tell the true story, our people's story. The topics that we will be covering range from health, wellness, the type of support, how important your social support system is, romance, and things of that nature. If you're interested in becoming a guest, you can check the link in the description. You can email us at info@grindinggang.com, or you can visit this link. Thank you so much and have an awesome day.
Queen Mother. Yeah, she's amazing. She's amazing. And I hope that through this show that more viewers will be able to connect with her and get with her. She is an acupuncturist and a doctor of Oriental medicine here in Maryland. And she knows homeopathic modalities. Sorry, that was my Animal Farm scurry. It's like Dr. Doolittle in here. But she's an acupuncturist and a professor at the University of Maryland School of Integrated Health. She is amazing, and she is going to, and a tantric professional. So she's going to add a lot to our discussion today. And I can't wait for you all to get used to her.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get her in. Dr. Yee?
Well, my primary function in life is a doctor of Oriental medicine. And I operate my private practice in Owings Mills, Maryland. So that is my primary hat, Doctor of Chinese Medicine, where I perform acupuncture. And instead of prescribing pharmaceuticals, I prescribe Chinese medical herbal formulas to assist people with various diseases and disharmonies in their bodies. So that is my primary role in life. Tantra instructor is a small part of my life, but it is a very vital part because so many things come from being blocked, being hindered, being energetically stagnant. There's so many issues that we have that stem from childhood, physical abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, sexual abuse. I know, oh gosh, when I was in my 20s, the statistics said at that time, and I'm sure it's far more than that now, that 1 in 5 women in America have experienced some form of sexual molestation or abuse as a child, and 1 in 4 men. That was just the reported cases.
Right.
Yeah.
I can only imagine what those numbers are now, 30 years later. So when you look at the effects of childhood sexual traumas and abuse, and how we carry that into our adulthood, and how it affects our relationships, not just our relationships with ourselves, but our relationships with our families, our friends, our coworkers, and especially our intimate partners. We bring all of our traumas into the bedroom with us. Medicine is that, everything good came from the motherland first, right? Civilization began in the motherland. Medicine began in the motherland. Everything that's anything, people came from all over the world to the motherland to learn and take it back. So how my journey with natural medicine started, it was a little girl in Mississippi. We couldn't always afford to go to the doctor and all of that, but we had Big Mama and Medea and Nan and all of them that would get in the kitchen and mix up stuff, and they knew what to do. Now, for me, I was in a severe burn accident as a toddler. And when people see my hands, sometimes, you can still see where they're discolored. And in my right hand specifically, you can kind of see it a little bit. You can see like the little traces of the burn marks still in my hand, like little marks that are still there. The doctor had told my mother and father after after the accident occurred, and he bandaged my hands, and my dad said he put my hands in his hands and prayed and told them that he had done all that he could do and the rest was up to God. And they sent me home, and he told my parents that according to medical science, Western medical science, I would never be able to use my hands. But somebody said I had a praying grandmother. And my mother's mother brought me home because it was a big battle. But everybody wanted to take me from my parents. My mother's parents took me home, and my grandmother began to nurse my hands with various herbs. And so not only did God heal my hands, God and my grandmama, not only were my hands healed, but now I use my hands to make a living and help heal others. And my grandmother would always tell me, you have healing hands, you have healing hands, you have healing hands. And now I use my hands to help heal others. So that was how my journey began with natural medicine.
The LLC is a concept that the government acknowledges is real. You're going to say, hey, government, I would like to give birth to an entity that will be legally recognized to own property and engage in commerce. And the government looks at your application, asks you for money, make sure that your application meets all of its requirement, and it gives you a sheet of paper like a company birth certificate. Birth certificate of a child demonstrates the child was born. Like it is just evidence that that happened, right?
Right.
Because you can be born and not have a birth certificate. I mean, like, there's billions of people on the planet that are born and don't have birth certificates. But a company only exists because the government says it does. You can't have an LLC unless the government has signed off on it. So the government sign off on it actually creates this entity. This certificate is the government's acknowledgement that this entity exists. Then what you do is that you go to and that's normally handled at the state level. And then just like with a child, you go to the IRS and you get a social security number. Except for businesses, that social security number is called an EIN. So there are different numbers. So like in Maryland, there's your EIN, which is issued by the federal government, which is basically your social security number for your business. Okay. Then there's different accounts that the comptroller's office comes up with in Maryland. And that number is also assigned to some of the state level tax activities that you engage in.
Okay. So Chanel, one of the things that you and I have talked about before is the energy exchange when it comes to adjusting someone's crown. Because and again, not disparaging anybody's any other types of crafts, but what I have found in working with people who do some of this is that the amount of time and the intimacy of the touch, like in their hair for so long, there's an energy exchange, and a lot of times for providers, for stylists, you get all of this different energy all day, all week long, and really don't necessarily have a place to release it, or a place to really kind of process it. And it sounds like you're going to be bringing some of those resources to the table too. So talk a little bit about what you're going to be bringing, at what you all are going to have at this event, that'll help stylists who may be having that kind of issue.
I'm sorry, repeat that last part again. I lost it.
I'm sorry. I was saying, what are you going to have at the event for stylists who may be having that type of issue, the whole energy exchange and taking on a lot of the people's, because it's a very intimate contact, and sometimes they share some of their challenges and struggles with you, and that energy exchange can get heavy after a while. So,
Absolutely.
what kind of resources are you going to have at the event to address that?
The intention are to have different therapists, talk therapists, whether they are PhDs or social workers. But, I find therapy to be extremely helpful in my mental health journey, and I think that that's necessary. So the intention is to have therapists of different sorts there, as well as different spiritual resources, whether it's a church or whether it's a tarot card reader, because it's something for everybody. To have just a spiritual refuge to kind of let it all down. And then for me, I kind of feel like this is something I've lived. As you said earlier, sustaining myself. And in this business, I learned, okay, I didn't know that any of this stuff was going to stick, but it's sticking and it's growing in this building. What do I need to do to ensure that I'm going to be able to be here? Because if I'm just twisting hair all day, but if I'm not putting my money away the way I should, or not reinvesting in my business, or if I'm not going to, for me, put my feet in the grass for my spirituality to ground myself. If I'm not doing these things to balance myself out, I'm not going to be able to be here. And so that's the premise behind it. So it's something for everybody, because everybody has different spiritual practices. Everybody manipulates and understands energy in a different way. So that's the intention. And also to see other creatives. I think that if people see that there are other people out here doing some of the things that they may be interested in, then that's almost like a release to see little images of yourself and to see that it's possible.
Indeed. That's where I kind of get my feel from, like you don't have to have no profession at all. Just being able to be around her and being around other people like this is going to be beneficial towards you. It's going to be beneficial for you. You know what I'm saying? So whether you have a business or you don't, if you are in this area, somehow you're supposed to be here with that. That's the energy that she has, that she given to me as an experience sitting in her chair. Breathing exercise techniques, you know what I mean? Like little tips like that is what I know she'll give to another stylist that's working maybe in La Jolla or up in Poway or Escondido. And that little bit is so much, because me, for example, like just sitting here, she would tell me, all right, now you go breathe, you go work on just breathing for the next 10, 15 minutes, and that's huge, because me as a kid going to a barbershop, I disliked it. I didn't like it at all, sitting there all day. Or, you know what I mean? I wasn't the talkative type. So it's different mentalities, and I was glad to find her. And I just want everybody else to feel that energy that I felt. So great question. And I'm glad I'll be able to put in on that.
And like I said, so pandemic hits. You say, like, to hell with this. I think it's time for me to go ahead, go get a 9 to 5. Your wife say, okay, then run it. And you take a nap. And you wake up, you're like, nah, I'm not doing this. And so not only do you not go and get a job, you say, we got 6 things on it. Let's just go ahead and do 8 times or more than that. 800% increase in the number of things on the website, the number of products that we offer, with all the design and everything like that. That sounds like a huge risk, especially when you went from a little bit of sales to nothing, and it didn't, and nobody knows what the future is going to hold. So what really got you to increase the number of products that you had? Like, why did you think that would work?
Two things. One, I believe when a customer perceives that you're investing in yourself, they're more reluctant to invest in you. Because they're seeing, you know what, I'm investing in your brand, and you're not. I can see that you're not using it on nonsense. You know, you ain't cop another Lamborghini or Ferrari, or I can see. Oh, you know what? Every time I buy something, they double on products. So my philosophy on that, and the other thing too is, I thought it was harder for a customer to make a purchase if they saw one T-shirt. I thought it was more interesting if a customer saw a T-shirt with a hat matching and a pair of shorts. You know, or if they had choices, like, you know what, there's 3 T-shirts, there's 3 hats and 3 shorts. I can choose. And when I started doing that, I started seeing, I want people to express themselves, but now I'm giving them more product to actually do that. So that was the philosophy behind it. Was, you know what, maybe the sales aren't coming in like we want because we're forcing something on them, opposed to giving them the options to set themselves up, you know, for whatever outfit, whatever event they're going to. So that was kind of the philosophy. And in doing so, especially when, you know, when the pandemic hit and everything dropped, you have to understand, okay, how we're going to manufacture. Like, am I going to go out and buy 144 T-shirts and hope somebody buys them and buy 8 sets of that? Or I'm going to control the manufacturing from the inside. And so, yeah.
So actually that jumps me to the next point. I'm really grateful that you're making this so easy on me. It's like all my questions, you're like, no, I'm just going to answer that before you ask. It's fine. Okay. So you talked about bringing the manufacturing in-house. That is a huge commitment, especially given the level of luxury that your brand is at. You know, the quality of the material that you use. How was that transition into relying on an external manufacturer and then collapsing that, you know, trying to make sure we use the proper business terms when, you know, collapse this, integrate the supply chain and take over the manufacturing yourself. So instead of having an external manufacturer, you take over that responsibility. That sounds like a real significant investment in time, resources, money. How did you make that happen?
Well, that's actually how I've always operated in business, even in music, because the way my mind works is if I can completely understand how the process goes, I can better communicate the process when need be. So I figured, okay, I was having conversations with embroiderers and I could see my designs weren't coming out the way I wanted them. And I could see really that was in the communication. And it wasn't in the fault of the manufacturer. It was it was actually my fault. Accountability is huge when you're doing business. I think a lot of people need to understand that. Be accountable for your mistakes. So what I did was I was like,
later we're gonna put a pin in that.
We're gonna put a pin in that.
Yeah, we're gonna do that. So so you understood that the issue was yours.
Yeah, the issue was mine because it was the communication. I could tell somebody I want a hat to look like this, and they would send me a sample, and I'm like, that's not what I said, and they were like, that's what you said. So then I would be like, okay, what is it that I said that and how did you take it? So I can better understand how to communicate with you. So what I wound up doing is everything I have no problem doing research. I have no problem shutting myself off to the world for 3 or 4 months, doing my research, you know, taking my notes and getting to better understand. So I say, listen, I'm going to get the embroidery machine. I'm going to get the heat press. I'm going to get the, you know, the machines that I need to do what I got to do. I'm going to go out and I'm going to start touching the fabric. I'm going to start smelling the fabric. I'm going to start seeing what it does. I'm going to start talking to people. Okay, what are you allergic to? What type of fabrics are you allergic to? And so I started having those conversations with different people, going out touching fabrics. Actually, during the pandemic, I was ordering fabrics. And then I zoned out. Nobody had communication with me except for family. And I was like on this embroidery machine for like 3 months. I got that. heat press, understanding, cutting, got that. Okay, now everybody's doing this. I don't want to do this because we're a different type of brand. How do I improve the quality of the embroidery, of the vinyl, of the this and that? So I started looking at all of this. I started looking at brands that now I don't know the individuals who own them, but they're kind of like my secret mentors. Like I watch and study these dudes inside and out. And now I can go to an embroiderer and be like, listen, I need 1,000 pieces. This is what the tech pack looks like, which tells them the exact sizing of each stitch, of each sleeve, of the fabric. So that's what tech packs do. It tells them, I can give somebody a tech pack now, and I don't have to say anything. Everything is on there. And so, to how I want the stitches, the direction of the stitches, how many stitches, how I want the cuffs double stitched a certain way. So I learned all of that. And what it did was it allowed me it benefited us financially, because instead of going out, when you do a sample on a shirt, it's not a $50 shirt when you're sampling. That shirt may be $300, $400 for one shirt for sample. So it might come back wrong and you got to do it again. I wanted it like this. So now instead of doing that, I'm like, listen, I can just get these fabrics, sew them up, and then be like, no, this ain't it. This ain't it. Now I'm spending, a fraction of that until I get it right. Now I have the system, So now when I speak to a huge manufacturer, it's a more coherent conversation, which will relate to less mistakes.
Okay. One of the we have a question actually from Takia Ross. Hey Takia, how you doing? I'm sorry, waving at the screen. She says it's amazing you were able to take that time. How did you maintain your business revenue and customer base during the time that you were doing your research?
Social media is a beautiful thing if you know how to use it, you understand it, and you don't let it take advantage of you. Please, I might express this a few times through this conversation. Mental health, man, mental health. So understand social media is a tool. Keep it there. It's a tool. You don't need.
Like for example, that's the mother of that's my kid's mom. Like she is an integral part of them being okay.
Exactly. Okay, and like you said, while we talk about, I know we taking a turn. It was like, there was one point, and I've had my children, so I haven't been away from my children. It was always equally shared,
absolutely.
Like like half of the week, because she worked, she drove a bus, so I had them half of the week, she had them half of the week, and then it came the time when my daughters got a little older. These teenagers, when they really started to play the system and they tried to get away from dad. There was a couple of things that happened. So then, because we had physical and legal custody of them, both of us did, and we didn't have a schedule nailed down. And so they would stay, they would try to figure out a way to stay away, especially when they was in trouble, And so I took we went to court, and the crazy thing is, when we went to court, they made us go to counseling sessions and stuff. And so the guy pulled me to the side. I said, because I was fighting for full custody. I was like, I want full custody. I want this. I want that. And the guy pulled me to the side. He said, look, I don't think what you want is full custody. What you want is to get the schedule straight. So that y'all can be cool. He said, because if you win this case, you don't win. You think that you're gonna get these girls and they're gonna come over there and do whatever you say after they feel like you took them from them.
Yeah.
And I was like, I had to think about that. I was like, dang, he right. You know what I'm saying? Like, because if I win, do I think that at that point they're gonna be like, oh, daddy, yeah, we're gonna go along with everything. It's gonna be like, you're gonna be met with maximum, attitude.
You're the bad guy now.
Yeah, exactly. You're the bad guy.
So tearing our family up.
Yeah. So what I'm saying. So I had to think about that. But like I said, thankfully, what I'm saying.
Wait. Do you remember this dude's name? Because again, we shout out people who do good shit.
I do not remember that guy's name. But it was funny because all through that whole process, I met a lot of good people, and some people I don't remember their names. And I can remember when they made us go to the first therapy session, it was a whole bunch of broke up couples, broken couples, like marriage,
it was about probably like about 10 couples in a room, and everybody was coming in, and so everybody was in there. It was a man and a woman, you know what I'm saying? And nobody wasn't speaking. I can remember the guy said when we walked in, he said, "Okay, I know it's tight in here right now, and I know that the way that y'all feeling towards each other." He said, "But don't forget that y'all made babies together. Y'all did this, y'all did that." And he broke the thing, and everybody started laughing. He said, "So y'all can loosen up a little bit ahead today." You know what I'm saying? Because everybody was looking at that mate like, hate you, I can't stand you. Oh boy, there she is. And he broke the mold. So the whole process was actually a good process. Which led to even me and my ex-wife even healing down the line, because I was in child support for a while, and then and then my ex-wife actually got with me after a while and was like, like, hey, look, you don't need to pay child support. You're already doing what you need to do. You know what I'm saying? Let's go down there and take, and get you off of there. You know what I'm saying? So she actually did that because I was doing a lot for my children already. You know what I mean? But when we was in the thick of the battle, it was like anything kind of went. You know what I'm saying? And I guess you talk about it another time, because I was getting ready to hit into even the guy who did the thing with the ex-wife and then the girlfriend. You know what I'm saying? Lately in the news. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.